Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And today, which is March the 13th, 2023, if you're listening in real time, I am recording on the land of the Anishinaabeg, Odawa, and Mississauga people, which is about 3 hours north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. If you are new here, welcome. You might not know that I'm also a mom of three, a yoga teacher, and the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. And if you are a returning listener, oh my gosh, it's so great to have you back. You know how things go around here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you can be connected to the information and ideas that are going to support you as you build your yoga business. And speaking of building your very own business, today's podcast is for you if you ever feel like your schedule just isn't working. Maybe you're teaching yoga classes on weekends or at times that don't fit your schedule. Maybe you're missing out on time with friends and family or events or holidays. Maybe you're working until 9 o'clock at night and still not feeling like you're getting ahead or getting your tasks done. Now, I learned this lesson the hard way that the answer is not more work time. The answer actually is more time off. And you might be skeptical right now, and for sure I would have been if someone was telling me this as a new entrepreneur. But the great news is that there's some really powerful science to actually back this up. So you might have already heard of the 4-day work week. My partner, Sean, who's a health and science journalist, wrote about some trial studies from last year. I will make sure to link to that Healthline article in the show notes in case you want to check that out. And I'll also link to a recent Science Daily article about a 6-month study involving 61 organizations in the UK where they reduced their work time by 20%. And in case you're like, no, I don't want to go follow this link, that's okay. Let me tell you. So this is the world's largest trial of a 4-day work week. And in this trial that was 6 months and involved all these 61 businesses in the UK, there were reduced rates of stress and illness in the workforce. So 71% of employees reported lower levels of burnout. 39% said that they were less stressed compared to when they started the trial. 65% reduction in sick days is what companies saw. And there was a 57% fall in the number of staff leaving the company compared to the same period in the previous year. And the biggest kicker here is that the company revenue, so the money that the company was making, barely changed during the trial period. And in some cases, it even increased by 1.4% on average. So by these studies, time off has a really positive impact for employees for sure, but also for companies. In my own business, I know that working more doesn't mean that I get all my work done and then have time off. Often I feel like if I work more, like let's say I just decide, okay, I'm going to work a lot this week. I'm going to work late nights. I end up creating more what I call busy work for myself. So I learned over the years to do very focused work time and take my planned time off. And I don't do it in that order. What I actually do is plan my time off and then fit my work time in. I get the important work done this way, but at the same time, I'm putting my time off, my time where I get to spend, doing the things I love, the hobbies that I love to do, spending time with friends and family, and just having downtime. I make sure that that fits in first. And this is the huge bonus of being an entrepreneur. If you've ever worked for someone else and you felt that, oh gosh, I just want to set my own schedule, once you get to that point and you're an entrepreneur, if you're not making that happen, what is the point? Because, oh my gosh, being an entrepreneur is a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility. Your brain doesn't really shut off. Like this is sometimes what makes me feel like, do I need a 9-to-5 working for someone else? That level of load on my mind running a business of my own. So for sure, one of the huge bonuses is that I get to set my time off and sometimes take more time off than the average 9-to-5 person who works a regular job. If you are not making that happen right now, if it feels like, you know what, my schedule just doesn't feel like a good fit for me, I hope this episode inspires you to make some small changes. Also, last week's episode may help you, episode 314. So if you haven't gone to listen to that, make sure to do so. These two episodes go together really well. You could listen to this one first and then go back and have a listen to the other one. Before we dive right into this, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, OfferingTree. If you are wanting to simplify the online parts of your business, make sure to check out OfferingTree. I use their software in my own business. I love that this company is listening to what yoga teachers want and need. When I share a link to my OfferingTree offerings, yoga students can easily register for a class, pay online, fill out my waiver form, get the Zoom link, get reminders through email, through text, and it's all automatic. All I have to do is have the link ready on my website or share it in an email or send it out on social media, and that's it. Everything else is automated. And OfferingTree is giving all of our Connected Yoga Teacher podcast listeners a special discount, which you can find over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Another sponsor for today's episode is Pelvic Health Professionals. This is an online membership for anyone wanting to learn the most up-to-date information about pelvic health from amazing worldwide guest experts. So if you are teaching yoga or movement of any kind to someone with a pelvis, make sure to check out Pelvic Health Professionals. You can head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com, check it out, let me know if you have questions. All right, so let's talk time off. Recently, I posted a question in the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. I'll link to that direct post in our show notes so that you can go and check out the responses, add your thoughts to it. That post said, let's talk holidays. How many days off do you take in a year as a full-time yoga teacher or as a full-time employee or a mix of both? How many days do you book off in a year? Do you have weekends off, 2+ weeks of vacation, and all stat holidays? And then I went on to say that I was putting a podcast together and that I would love any comments on this topic, any thoughts or any questions. Then I finished off saying, personally, I don't think entrepreneurs focus on time off enough until they hit burnout or realize the energy needed to keep up this pace. So I want to talk about it. And there were such great responses in this thread that I wanted to, with permission, of course, share some of them on the podcast. Now, I can't share them all. There are a lot being added still to this thread. It's a great conversation in there, but I wanted to share some of them on the podcast today. Thank you so much to the yoga teachers who let me know that I can use their comments here on the podcast. I am going to be linking to their website or their social page if they wanted that shared in our show notes, in case you want to connect with these yoga teachers or check out their offerings. Thank you to Erin Olsson, a lawyer and a yoga teacher from New Zealand. Erin replied to my question by saying, I work full-time in a corporate job and teach about 7 hours a week around that. I have flexible working in my full-time and teach about 2 to 3 hours during the workday. The rest is early mornings, evenings, and some weekends. My full-time gives me 5 weeks paid leave a year, which I always use for holidays. I don't teach on my holidays. I have most Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays free from teaching. I'm about to open a studio, which will offer classes in blocks, 5 weeks on, 1 week off. I need the break from teaching and can use the off weeks for holidays or if I have work travel. Thank you so much for sharing this, Erin. I love that you don't use your holidays from your full-time career to work in your yoga career. I think that's so important. I also love that you have set days off from teaching and that you're going to create a studio that has 1 week off after 5 weeks of yoga classes. I think this is a really great model to look at. And Erin went on to tell me in a private message, which she also gave me permission to share parts of this, that she has needed firm boundaries, even with teaching yoga, which she loves. Otherwise, she gets tired out. I totally get this, Erin. I'm the same way. She said it took her a few years to get to this point. Slowing down for her has been hard, but she needs it. She said that her clients don't seem to mind the teaching blocks at all. They keep returning to class, and she's also thinking about onboarding another teacher at some point to offer more classes at her studio. But for now, she's starting out small and slow. I think this is a brilliant way to look at building a business. I've seen some online business owners in the last 6 years where I've been podcasting and been, making connections in the online business world. I've seen some people go really big very fast and hit that burnout and kind of just shut everything down. So I think it's smart to do this. Let's start small and slow if that feels like a good fit for you. Erin's website is www.elementsyoga.nz. Next, I want to share a comment or a few comments from Jennifer Parker and Rebecca Sebastian. Thank you so much for giving me permission to share these comments in this thread. These two yoga teachers often have really amazing things to share in many discussions about yoga and business. I've really appreciated what they've shared over the years in their comments in Facebook groups I'm in. And I really also love how Rebecca took the time to share how a comment from Jennifer helped her to stick to time off over the last 5 years. So let me share what they both said. Jennifer first said, when I started out, I basically took no time off, the occasional holiday of 1 to 3 weeks, but it was very occasional. I worked 7 days a week and some days from 6:30 a.m. until 7:15 p.m. with classes. So that meant ending around 8:45 and then closing the studio until 9:30 or so. It was real madness. Oh my gosh, I really appreciate you sharing this, Jennifer, that's where you started off. She goes on to say, when I moved to New Zealand, I worked Monday to Friday, had state holidays, and 3 weeks at Christmas, New Year. When my son started school, I aligned to having 2 weeks off in April, July, and October also. Currently, I just teach when it suits the family schedule. I teach Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday mornings. I have Monday, Friday, and Saturday open. I usually take school holidays still, as well as the December-January holiday, plus the state holidays, though most fall on Monday or Friday, so it's already sorted. The nice thing about teaching is that it can be very fluid. So I love this example, Jennifer, because you started off just like, okay, 7 days a week, like from 6:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. And it was total madness. And you felt like this isn't working. And then you learned how to make your teaching schedule be very fluid and how to make it fit your family's schedule. I love it. Jennifer also went on to say, my admin for the business is done on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I sometimes offer workshops and teacher trainings on Saturdays, Sundays. These are scheduled around the family and well in advance so there's no conflict. I attend yoga classes and in brackets, edification, relaxation on Sunday and Tuesday morning. I do the majority of my householding, resting, and personal time on Monday and Friday. I love the detail here. It really is great to see how you've made this schedule work for you, Jennifer. And then Rebecca went on to share this comment that I just had to include here. Rebecca says, Jennifer, I think something like 5 years ago, you were the first person I ever heard say something like, I'm scheduling 6 weeks off this year. At that time, I felt like it was a goal I could never achieve, but I've always held that as my goal. This biz has many downsides, but being able to control our time off in that way is one definite upside. You were the first woman I ever heard say that out loud as a goal unapologetically. So thank you for that. It stuck with me in a good way. Oh my gosh, you two. I just love that this one comment stuck with you, Rebecca, and you made that your goal and you worked towards that. I'm hoping that that's what today's podcast episode does. I hope that it inspires our listeners to look at their time off a little bit closer. Another yoga teacher who lives in Naples, Florida. Thank you so much, Shiva, or also Nathan. So Nathan went on to tell me that their spiritual name is Shiva, and I appreciate the clarification. Thank you so much. I like to try and get names correct here on the podcast. So Nathan commented saying, I retired quite early to follow my passion, yoga. At the ashram where I studied and trained, they advised us not to teach more than 2 classes a day and to have at least 1 full day off. I currently teach 1 to 3 classes a day on Tuesdays to Saturdays, with Sundays and Mondays off. However, in the hot summer months here in South Florida, I take a 2-week vacation in July and then the entire month of September to spend in Europe to recharge before the busy snowbird season starts up here in October. Thank you so much for sharing this, Nathan. I love that you really go with your own seasons and that you find time for this break before you know things are really going to pick up steam and get very busy. Before I go into a few more shares here from other yoga teachers, I want to tell you, connected yoga teachers, about a recent question that I got from a yoga teacher that is one that I get quite often. This yoga teacher reached out to me and asked me about the best way to compile her pre-recorded yoga classes into an online studio membership. So she's been teaching online classes on Zoom and saving the recordings, sending the replay out to her students. She doesn't have a website built yet, but she'd like to put one together so that her students can access all of the classes, a bit like Netflix, but for yoga in this membership model. If you are feeling like you're in the same spot, you're creating these classes, you're doing the recording already, and you want to put this together as a membership, I highly recommend checking out OfferingTree. They have a 14-day trial. If you decide to stay on with them, make sure to use the coupon code that's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. This really is the answer that I give to yoga teachers. This is why OfferingTree is our sponsor, because I was already talking about them so often to yoga teachers, so it is easy to talk about it here on the podcast. All right, let's get back to talking about time off. Another yoga teacher, Charisma Whitefeather, who lives in Los Angeles, and Charisma's website is www.kundaliniwithcharisma.com. I'll make sure that we put it in the show notes. Charisma says, I take September off, and I just got back from a 10-day meditation retreat, and in June I'll be gone for another 10 days. So about 50 days off a year. I'm a self-employed yoga teacher, so I do what I want, and it's very important for me to take my personal growth seriously so I can be the best teacher for my people. Now, I do want to say here, connected yoga teachers, if you are listening to this and you're like, how is that even possible? How are these many days off possible? And maybe you're feeling like it won't fit because of your schedule and your workload, or maybe it won't fit because of your income. I want you to remember those scientific studies that I talked about earlier. Those businesses did not lose money, even though their employees worked 20% less. It is possible. So really have a look at the time that you're spending working. Have a look at how much are you currently taking off right now in terms of time off. What if you just start to take baby steps towards those days off? So maybe it's sounding like, oh my gosh, 50 days off a year, how is that even possible? What would it feel like to make sure that you have a week off here and a week off there, like a couple weeks to start? Or to make sure that you have your weekends off, or that you shut down at a certain time of the day. If you feel like that's the place that you're in, make sure to go back and have a listen to episode 314, where I really dig into that. And this thread also isn't just all yoga teachers sharing, how great everything is and how much time off they have. Kat Hagberg went on to say in this comment, which I'll make sure to put Kat's website, which is kathagberg.com. Kat went on to say, my current situation isn't ideal, but I have not had an actual day off since I think August. And I don't think I've ever taken a vacation or holiday that wasn't paired with a work or family or friend obligation of some sort as an adult. Honestly, that's the dream. You know what? Thank you so much, Kat, for being honest about this. You're not alone in this. There are moments where I also do the same. And so what would it take to make that dream possible? What would be the baby step to make that possible would be my question to you. And what does that dream look like near the end? How many days off a year or a week would you like to have? And I get into this again. I keep referring back to episode 314. There's a journal exercise in there, and that really helps you to outline some of those dreams and goals in terms of time off. Another yoga teacher who gave me permission to share their comment anonymously said, I'm terrible at taking time off. I take weekends off, but I still putter on the computer sometimes. I just don't work all day. I usually take off long weekends and a week at Christmas time. But again, as a business owner, I cannot not check email for a whole week, so I'm not completely off. The only other time I take off is where we take a family vacation. I'm really bad at downtime. I want to say to anyone who's feeling like this, you are not alone in this. I've worked with multiple yoga teachers and multiple studio owners or studio managers who feel like they cannot shut off email, their phone, registrations, social media responses. I get how this feels. I have managed 2 yoga studios, actually 3. I've managed 3 yoga studios in my life. And I get how it feels to be like, oh my gosh, I have to answer these all the time because what if someone wants to register for a class? There are ways to make this automated. So definitely OfferingTree is one of those things that I would suggest any studio owner or yoga teacher so that people can register for a class without needing to private message you. And these boundaries exist in other businesses. You know, if I want to order flowers from a small business in my town, I know their hours. I can't do it outside of their hours. There are some businesses that will deliver flowers and you can order them online. You know, maybe it's more automated, but I respect when small businesses have these boundaries set up. So I would just say, what are the baby steps? No shame or blame. Just what are the baby steps to making this happen? Another yoga teacher, Sarah Garden, who I'll link to Sarah's Instagram. Sarah's over at Connected Yoga Therapy on Instagram. Sarah says, I'm working a full-time job as a yoga therapist, then working 6 to 10 hours in the evenings doing yoga therapy. It's a bit much, but I do my best to take weekends off, and by next year I will, so they tell me, have paid vacations. Right now I can take LOA days if I need them, but I have only taken 2.5 days around Christmas this year. As soon as I have the opportunity, I will be taking all the holidays. I typically find most yoga teachers who survive off their yoga income alone, no income from another job or their partner's income, work way too much. Sarah, I agree 100%. This is what often happens with yoga teachers. I know as someone who has lived off of my yoga income alone and raised 3 kids on that income all by myself, nobody else pitching in with that income. I know what it feels like to think, okay, if I work more, I will ease things here with the money situation. And it never worked for me. It actually made it so that I would work so much that I'd have these periods of brownout or burnout or just really wear myself right down, and I wasn't as effective at the things that I was doing. It wasn't for a long time that I realized, wow, when I really look at my calendar the whole year, mark my time off, what I really think would be helpful for me, and then work in between those times, that's when I really noticed things shift. But I appreciate what you're saying. You know, we sometimes are in a sprint mode in our business and we have to do that work time. And I love how you are looking at your paid vacations that are coming up and really looking forward to taking that time off. Alrighty, last comment here from Barbara. I hope I get this name right. Germershausen. I hope I'm getting it right, Barbara. Thanks for typing out how it's pronounced. Let's just hope I got that correct. Barbara goes on to say, I generally take about 4 weeks off in a year. That usually comes out as 2 2-week vacations or staycations, or 1 2-week and 2 1-week breaks. I'm always off between Christmas and New Year and often turn that into a 2-week break, depending on where the holidays land in the week. I also take long weekends or a day off here and there. My busy days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, teaching 5 to 6 classes, 2 in person, the rest on Zoom, and 2 privates. Monday and Friday, I only teach a 1-hour morning class at a senior living community. Since I'm contracted, I make my own schedule and can drop a day whenever I want. Most Sundays, I teach a midday yoga nidra or a 1.5 to 2 hour workshop, both on Zoom. I also build in some off days for Sunday. Saturday is the only day of the week when I'm not teaching at all. I like having the flexibility to take off Friday through Monday without affecting my class schedule too much, so packing most of my classes into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday works well for me. I used to teach 12 to 15 sessions a week and rarely took time off, except during the holidays and when I was sick. I'm 68 years old, been teaching 38 years, and I'm done with that kind of schedule. I also used to teach back-to-back classes or privates, and I don't do that anymore. I space my classes out and take breaks away from the studio or Zoom platform in between. I try to listen to what my body needs and not worry about the income. It's not always easy to let go like that, but I find that the money comes in when I need it, and my breaks from teaching are necessary for my mental and physical health. Thanks for getting this discussion going. It's been good to hear what others have found works for them. Thank you so much, Barbara. And also congratulations, Barbara, on your website. It looks amazing. Barbara can be found over at simplyyogacville.com. And I'll make sure that we link to that in our show notes. So as you can see, connected yoga teachers, everyone has a unique situation. You might be caring for toddlers or elders or working full-time, or you might have oodles of free time. The idea that we all have the same 24 hours in a day just isn't true. I get that logically it makes sense, but my same 24 hours right now is very different to when I brought my daughter home from the hospital 18 years ago. She was on oxygen and I had to wake her every 2 hours to feed her because she was born 3 months early. On top of that, her 2 brothers were in the house with us, a toddler and the other one in his early days of elementary school. And so, yeah, those 24 hours were not the same as my 24 hours now. So please do not compare yourself to others. In the comments here, in what I've shared, you can for sure learn from their words, especially if they've worked as a yoga teacher or an entrepreneur for some years and they've learned along the way. But do not compare your situation to someone else's life situation that is very different from yours. I hope that me sharing these words are helpful to you. I hope it inspires you to go on to book your time off. And if you have more questions about this, make sure to send me a voicemail. That's the easiest way that I can answer your question and maybe do it here on the podcast. You can do that over on our homepage, theconnectedyogateacher.com. Look for the voice message button over on the side, and you can let me know if you're okay with me sharing it here on the podcast or if you'd rather it was a private voicemail. Also, I have some exciting things coming up next week along the same thread. And like I said, if you haven't already listened to episode 314, I would say go and listen to that before next week's episode, if possible. These 3 episodes fit together so well. So last week on the podcast, I talked about how to outline your daily and weekly break time. So if planning time off feels really impossible right now, go listen to that one for sure. And also, there's 4 episodes, episode 308, 309, 310, 311, where if you are feeling tired and overwhelmed and you don't know where to start and you have very low energy, start with episode 308. If you want to get into like the seasons of business and the seasons of life, if you're starting to compare yourself to other business owners, go back and have a listen to 309. And if you are struggling to fit in some personal self-care or a yoga routine, episode 310 and 311 are there for you. I think often what is the fuel to keep me going in my business, and so I wanted to make 2 episodes where we really talk about that. So next week, I'm going to be talking about holidays, vacations, and booking your CEO days. If you're not sure what I mean by that, believe me, you are running a business, you are the CEO of your business, and you need some time to be the CEO and do those tasks. All of the links and notes are over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/315 for today's episode. And if you want to get together in real time, right now it's on Zoom with me, there are some really exciting things that are happening. So March the 20th, which is coming right up, we have a guest expert, Dr. Nidhi Sharma, for our pelvic health professional members. And yes, you can still join. We're going to be learning all about the pudendal nerve, its anatomy, the common sites of irritation, symptoms when there's an issue, and what that looks like when there's an injury or issue with this nerve. So if you love to geek out about all things pelvic health, make sure to come on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and check that out. Also, anyone can register to do some yoga with Shelley Prosco. That is happening April 11th to May the 23rd. That's on Tuesdays. It's at 10:30 a.m. Mountain or 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Really excited about this because Shelley is going to do a 7-week pelvic floor and whole person approach. You can find out more about this or sign up over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Under yoga on our menu page, look for Balance Flow Yoga, and that's with Shelley Prosco. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh shoot, those dates are long gone, not to worry. We have a replay for both of them, and you can find those both over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Members, please remember that you have access to all of these events. It's included in your membership. So that's a hint for all of you who aren't members. You can also access this by becoming members of Pelvic Health Professionals. Huge thank you to our team over here, Suzanne, Crunch, and Sinead, for making this podcast possible. And also to you, dear listener, because you have hung out here. You have listened to other yoga teachers talk about their time off, listen to me share about what has worked for me in terms of time off. And now I'm curious to know what you will be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.